Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, people of all ages, welcome back to the Sticky Floors podcast. I am one of your hosts, CJ. I am joined by Mr. Will. Me and Mr. Will are back from vacation, about to kick it off with season 4 of the Sticky Floors podcast. For those of you this is your first time listening, me and Mr. Will, we break down some movies from the past, some more current movies every week. We have these shows available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, YouTube. There are 33 shows available before this on those different platforms. You are invited to like, subscribe, and share and enjoy the journey with us. As I said from the beginning, me and Mr. Will, after 11 episodes, we usually take some time off and just chill, do a little vacationing, a little respite from the work here. Mr. Will, what'd you do with your time off, my brother?
Oh man, I just did typical father daughter, family stuff, man. I didn't really get into too much too heavy, just the family stuff, taking it easy, some research on like where we want to go with this and the trajectory we see this popping off, man. What about you, yeah?
Good stuff, man. It's funny, man. I started watching that X-Men '97
Yeah,
joint, and it brought back all of my memories of like just being a comic book
right,
collector,
right.
and just like that whole just wonderment of like that kind of storytelling. And I actually started going back and I started listening to like YouTube clips of Chris Claremont,
Hmm.
who did a lot of writing. He wrote like X-Men for like 20 years,
Yeah.
and I started like listening to him, listening to his clips, and I was just fascinated by the idea of how he talked about creating stories
Hmm.
and then the idea of like story arcs
Mm.
and just like how much thought goes into the creation of characters and to the creation of a narrative that just lasts for such a long time. And one of the things that really stood out to me is I was watching this question and answer with him, and during the question and answer, somebody asked him what was his favorite X-Men story,
Mm.
and his answer was like, well, actually, I don't have like I didn't even think about it as a favorite, like, oh, it's Dark Phoenix or it's Extinction Agenda or it's Inferno. He thought about it like it was one long story
Hmm.
telling a story of one group of people, right? And I thought it was like a great segue into the movie we're about to cover tonight, right? Because we're
Okay.
about to talk about Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, which is the third and the final of the prequel movies. And, like, and for those who may not know, today is May 4th. If you're a Star Wars junkie like me and my man, Mr. Will, then we say, may the 4th be with you, because that's what goes along with these Star Wars movies. So it's fitting that on a day like this, we're having a conversation about a movie like Revenge of the Sith that's telling this narrative, like this narrative story, which some people have called the Skywalker saga
Hmm.
because it's always about like that kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to this conversation today. But before we get started, we always kick it over to Mr. Will to give us a synopsis of the movie, and then we're gonna jump into it and break it down.
Yeah, but just so that tagging along on CJ talking about May the 4th be with you. Today is untypical because usually when Disney, Star Wars, Marvel releases something, it's usually done on a Wednesday or a Friday. But today they released short stories about the Empire, whereas the first season they did was short stories of the Jedi. So uh, cats might want to tune into that joint. I caught like two, yeah, about two episodes. They're 10 minutes long. Right before CJ and I jumped on here, but I encourage everybody to peep that one time.
Wait, so those just dropped right now?
Yeah, that's the release this morning. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh yeah,
it's this morning.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
As soon as this is done, yeah, I'm on that.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah, definitely,
Oh,
definitely. And CJ made a good point. You know, uh, during my research, one podcast that I checked out was Full Size Run. They're no longer doing it, but it had a couple of dudes on there: Trinidad James, Matt Welty, and Brendan Dune, and they basically had a good camaraderie back and forth. So hopefully, you'll see some of the stuff that we've tried to implement and incorporate. This has been a fun ride, and I don't want anyone to think that we don't take your opinions, observations to heart. We do actually, and that's why we're trying to get better with each podcast. But with that being said, my synopsis is a little bit of it goes like this. We're talking about the betrayal, manipulation, power, loss of life, death, love, and redemption. These themes are infused into the last of the prequel trilogy. A young star-crossed couple is swept away in a spirited romance that was doomed to fail from its inception and consummation. Brothers are thrust into conflict due to opposing fundamental beliefs. An immature young man is asked to complete a difficult and dangerous mission by those he has sworn an allegiance to. They repeatedly and openly discuss that they were reluctant in bringing him into their order. Ironically, they fear him, although they preach not to fear. And most importantly, they distrust him.
Yeah.
Did they knowingly send him to his doom by putting him in harm's way? The vulnerability of trust is often expressed. Consequences of broken loyalties are at the forefront. This narrative is composed of a rich and supple mass amount of topics which resonate with the audience.
There it is, man. And that breakdown is like the Shakespearean tragedy, which is which is the Revenge of the Sith, right?
Yes.
Yo, so before we get into it, man, I know that you saw this when it first came out,
Yeah.
right? Tell me about like what's that experience like going to the movie theaters to see a Star Wars movie?
Oh man, it's dope, and I don't think words do it justice. Certain things you have to. I've come to appreciate that you have to be in that moment. You have to really experience it firsthand. So when someone
Mm-hmm.
talks about, say, for example, hearing Malcolm X speak, or the British invasion with the Beatles, or anything of that ilk, something that impacts the culture in such a way that
Mm-hmm.
the shift is gigantic. This is one of those events. I know that this may sound crazy, but literally, if you think about it on a micro versus a macro scheme, um, Star Wars New Hope came out in 77, followed by The Empire Strikes Back. What is that, like 81? And then
Yeah,
82.
80, and then Return
So
of the
that's
Jedi is
83.
83.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm old enough to have witnessed like some of these major changes with respect to like these movies coming out, and you can steadily see the ball rolling. You got the toys and the fandemonium, the Christmas special,
Absolutely.
and when you're younger it doesn't impact you the same as it does when you may be in your teenage years and your 20s. So witnessing, being able to go to the movies on my own, see people dressed up in the different characters, wardrobes, all of that, bringing signs, and it's just crazy. Like witness
Mm-hmm.
like the fervor that these people have. They're very vehemently, uh, pro Star Wars. It's like one of their kids. So I'm sitting there in the movie theater looking at all these people. I actually were one of my dudes from high school. And we, like you, we both have that camaraderie and that love based upon Star Wars. And we're sitting there and just enthralled by what we see. Um, the spectators, and like is like such pandemonium with everybody rushing in. And I can't
Mm-hmm.
help but get swept away in it, because I too, um, when Darth Maul first got introduced in Phantom Menace, I went and got a Darth Maul. People knew that I liked certain things, so I would get like Mace Windu joints in the mail from people I hadn't seen in a minute. Like just a whole bunch of paraphernalia. So then when this joint dropped, everybody was looking for an Anakin toy for me and stuff. So like, there's a lot of these things that I still have. So as you can see, it brings a smile to my face just reminiscing about
That's it.
that. Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. The thing about these movies I always remember is that these are the joints that you used to see 12 o'clock at night,
Hmm.
the Friday before they came out.
Yeah.
So I would absolutely be at a movie theater. I was absolutely at a movie theater to watch this
Hmm.
movie, 12:01 a.m. the Thursday before, and these are long.
Yeah.
So like you're gonna be in the movie theater till about 2:30 in the morning
It's a
to
2 hour and
see it.
15-minute joint. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're there with people that are dressed like Wookiees and and
Yeah.
stormtroopers and
At
everything.
midnight.
And yeah, and it's like, and the thing about it is that people that are Star Wars fans, it's like the characters are like people that matter to you,
Hmm.
right? And it's like you care about not only like the journey, but like how they're portrayed. And
Mm.
I think one of the things about Star Wars is that people that love that like watch these movies, they love them.
Mm.
Like no one is a lukewarm Star
Yeah.
Wars fan.
No.
Like
In or out.
you're either in the Star Wars camp or you're out.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's like the movie experience was just going in it. I remember watching this, and the thing about this particular movie is this is the one that was going to show the audience how Anakin Skywalker became Darth
Right.
Vader. You know, that was the draw, and it was like, let's get into it, let's see it. So yeah, it brings a smile to my face talking about
Yeah.
it too. So yeah, this is a fun one to do. So all right, so let's talk about. So there's a couple things like I was thinking. You know, when we think about the prequels, right? Prequels came out, you know, first Phantom Menace, like you talked about with Darth Maul, great scene, Attack of the Clones, and then you have Revenge of the Sith.
Mhm.
I remember thinking, well, maybe this was me, but I think that other people thought this too. People didn't like the prequel trilogy too much. And part of it was, I think it was compared to the first ones, you know, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, New Hope, classic movies. But it's a funny thing happened over time that I think as time is going on, people have started to like these movies more. And this one in particular, I think is the one that's really rocketed up a lot. And I want to talk a little bit about why. And there's two things I want to suggest, submit to you for us to just chop up. The first is that I think what has changed the idea of the prequels is the amount of storytelling that's happened around it. And what I mean by that is like Clone Wars cartoon, Star Wars Rebels, the introduction of the character Ahsoka,
Mhm.
which I think is huge. And then the second, so that storytelling, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, the Ashoka series, all those things have helped these movies. And then the other part is not so great, but I think the sequel trilogy parts, what is it, 7, 8, 9, were not that good.
Mhm.
If people look back and say, wow, the prequels is really good, man.
Mhm.
So when I put that out there, what do you think about that, man? What's your thoughts on that?
No, I'm definitely riding with you on that, man. I think that art imitates life in this in so many ways. Everyone is so opposed, vehemently opposed to Kathleen. I think her last name is Turner. She was in charge of
Kennedy.
Kennedy. There you go.
Kennedy.
Yeah. Of Star
Yeah.
Wars and the direction it was headed and the quality of the movies.
Mhm.
And I think that helped to galvanize those who were, you know what? We are so much opposed to the prequel joints. You know what? They weren't half bad in comparison to this rubbish that we got. You know, and then the actual depiction
Yeah.
of those characters that you grew up with. You know,
Yeah.
you can't have this optimistic Jedi in Luke Skywalker, then all of a sudden betray everything he stands for, trying to kill his nephew, being a
Mhm.
grumpy old miser. You know, he's become a conundrum. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just
Drinking that blue milk.
like it was nothing, like it was beer or something, you know, a frazzled, dirty old beard and like just unkempt. You know, how do you get to that point? And I think that was the reason why you have Dave Filoni actually making sure that, yeah, Luke Skywalker appears in all black, cutting down those super stormtrooper fake, you know,
Yeah. Super Trooper
yeah,
joints. Yeah.
joints, because he recognized that like we have so much, you know, things that we've done as a collective to damage the legacy of Star Wars. I also think the fact that, you know, maybe cats judge Hayden Christensen too harshly. You know, you got to
Mm-hmm.
recognize you can only do so much as an actor with the script you're given.
Yep.
Admittedly, and you and I discussed this in the pre-production meeting. You know, there's many things that George Lucas is great at. Writing is not one of them, specifically love stories. So everything
Mm-hmm.
between the dialogue between Padme and Anakin is clunky at best,
Yeah.
straight trash at its worst. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. And I like the point you made about Hayden Christensen, because I would say that I'm one of those people
Mm-hmm.
that didn't really understand like how well he actually played the character.
Yeah.
Because like you know, like we talked about this earlier, I thought that the first of the prequel movies would really show you Anakin Skywalker as a almost like a teenager, young adult. You
Mm-hmm.
would see that, so that you'd kind of get more of the heroic version
Mm-hmm.
before you got to the dark side. And starting him off as like a child, and then having Hayden Christensen play him as sort of like a petulant teenager, I remember thinking at the time I didn't like that.
Mm.
But then as I got older and then I watched it again, I thought about it more. And I think all the storytelling around it, it made perfect sense for him to be that way. It made perfect sense for him to behave that way. And it made perfect sense for Hayden Christensen to play him that way.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I think is really dope, and you see this like on a like in the Star Wars celebrations, is the Star Wars community has now like re-embraced him,
Mm.
you know, like as an actor and as his portrayal. And I think that's one of the reasons why when you watch like the Ahsoka series and even the Obi-Wan Kenobi series,
Mm-hmm.
they were intentional about making sure they put him in the
Oh
series.
yeah.
Like they made sure that you could see him playing Anakin Skywalker, or see him inside Darth Vader's mask, to remind people that, yeah, this is a part of this actor's journey too,
Mm-hmm.
and to really bring him back in. So I think that's a good point there. I do also want to just go back. I think one of the things that really helps the Anakin Skywalker thing is the creation of the Ahsoka character.
Mm.
So like the idea of, and you never see it in the movies, and so it's not really a part of Revenge of the Sith, but giving him a Padawan himself that he could kind of teach stuff to, that also left him narrative storytelling wise right before all these events happen, kind of also gives you this sense of compelling, consistent loss in Anakin's life.
Mm.
That also, I think, helps you understand the trajectory of the character for why he kind of makes the decisions that he does.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. I think it was necessary to show that he had much to lose and allow that vulnerability to express itself in the manner in which he did. And you can't
Mm-hmm.
do that as a mature, rational being who is very stoic, who's very composed
Yeah.
in his, say, 30s. You have to show him as an agent of loss, an agent of disruption, and not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
him per se, but the things, the surrounding external events that help to create and foster him into being that agent. Um, his mom, first and foremost, not knowing who his dad was, the
Mm-hmm.
speculation that Palpatine manipulated the Force, or maybe it was his mentor. So
Darth
Grace.
Plagueis, yeah.
So you never get a clear cut explanation as to who his true biological father is. Fast forward, when Qui-Gon comes and saves him, he becomes not only his hero, his idol, but he's also his surrogate father and his mentor. So you have this
Mm.
person who is basically going to shape who he becomes as a man. And that loss, I would argue, is probably the greatest loss to him and to the universe, because it's a loss to the universe and he is the so-called chosen one, which he's done a disservice by those that have adopted him, his surrogate family, the Jedi, because they never explained to him his role or importance and the significance that he plays. So
Yeah.
it handicapped him. Then in turn, now his brother, Obi-Wan, has to now resume that role in his life. And you could tell he wasn't equipped for it. He was headed in a different
Yeah.
direction altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Obi-Wan is like the manager walking
Yeah.
in the first day and things are just about to get on fire.
Yeah,
So like
definitely.
when you think, like it's always like it's puzzling. So like a couple things you said that I think are really key is that, one, in the Phantom Menace, um, Qui-Gon says, "I'm going to take Anakin as my
Hmm.
Padawan," right? And it's not even hard. It's not even a hard imagination to say maybe the trajectory of Anakin is much different
Hmm.
with a much more seasoned
Yeah.
Jedi master as his teacher. He got Obi-Wan, and it's not like Obi-Wan is bad, but Obi-Wan is not. He's just not as sophisticated as Qui-Gon is, and Obi-Wan has his limitations, right? Which I know we'll talk about a little bit more as we go into this. But it's like one of the things with this movie is, I think, because of all these notes, because of like all the storytelling that's happened, it just helps you to get a better idea and better understanding and grounding of how does this go so far off the
Yeah.
rails, because like even as a person watching it the first time, I wanted Anakin to not go to the dark side
Of
because like I
course.
like the character,
Yeah.
right? But that's an
It's inevitable.
inevitable part of that.
Hmm.
And I will say that I do think that this particular time of storytelling for Star Wars, they've tapped it a lot, right? Like they've pulled, like they got the Andor story, which kind of like takes
Yeah.
place around somewhere around the time they got it with Rebels, Star Wars Rebels. They got it with some of the Clone Wars stuff. Um, there's still other stories they can tell here. Like I would love to see a Darth Vader series.
Mm.
I would love to see like 6 to 8 episodes of Darth Vader just going around the galaxy stomping people out. I would like I
Yeah.
would I would watch that.
Oh, I
And I
definitely watched that.
think it'll be entertaining, right? And
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think that, interestingly enough, like we talked about this a little bit before, like if you look at a movie like Joker, we have now reached a point in movie storytelling where you can do a whole movie with the villain.
Hmm.
You don't even need to have the hero in it anymore, and people will still like it and they'll watch it and it'll be interesting. I think what you can do that with Vader, and I think in its own way, the really interesting thing about this movie is that it has this way of elevating the evil characters to the forefront, because this story is telling you a lot about Anakin Skywalker becoming Darth Vader, but you can make a case that the entire joint is telling you the story of Sheev Palpatine,
Mm.
my man Palps, who's like 50 steps ahead of everybody from the Phantom Menace to the last joint.
Yeah, these are interesting points you raise. Um, Anakin is a tragic hero. So I can definitely see the compelling story that goes along with his, finally embracing himself as Vader, a distinctly different character from Anakin, hence the reason why Obi-Wan explained to Luke, yeah, Anakin was your father. Darth Vader killed Anakin, because
Mm.
you have, like you mentioned in the pre-production meeting, you have to make that distinction in order for the story not only to uh, be coherent, but to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
How could someone be so dynamically opposed to what they once were? Um, and even with that, you referenced the Jokers. Well, that makes sense too when they there was like an Elseworld story of the tale of the Jokers in which the Joker was recreating other Jokers. So
Mm-hmm.
Batman eventually is on the Morbius chair and he's saying like, who is the Joker, and it was only reaffirming who he was, but then there was a mention of like these all other Jokers. So you have the
Mm-hmm.
comedian, hence the reason why you have the Joker with Jacqueline and Lady Gaga, and then even the one before that, that's the
Mm-hmm.
comedian. Then you had the um,
The
R.I.P. Rest in
gangster.
Power, Keith Ledger, and you have him as the psychopath, sociopath, and then you got the
Mm-hmm.
gangster in Jack Nicholson, and you got
Mm-hmm.
the originator in what is it, the what is 1967 version of him,
Yeah.
um,
Caesar
Romero.
Romero.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
Caesar Romero plan. Yep.
you got, and then you have the, these variations, and they're very distinct. And I think the same thing could be said with your reference of the dark, if Darth Vader had maybe even 4 episodes, I don't even care if it's not 6 or 8, you know,
I'm
yeah,
watching
I'm
it.
watching it because you get to see
I'm
him
watching it.
jumping from galaxy to galaxy on the live screen. The comic books do a great job, revisiting one of the courtesan, excuse me, one of the court members of Padme, and who she resembles her, and she's like one of the from the
Mm-hmm.
bodyguards, et cetera, et cetera. They even show like Darth Vader being able to tap into seeing the past and time travel. Those tease the imagination, but
Yeah.
bringing something on the screen, the live screen, even if it was through the Disney Plus joint, I think that would be impeccable. I mean, everybody would rush to that. I mean, it would be
No.
another resurgence for Hayden Christensen, because he didn't get a good shot coming up originally in these things. I actually
Yeah.
remember the backlash he received for his depiction of Anakin, and even the young kid, I forget his name right now. Even he didn't have a good go around as Anakin as a child, with his
Yeah, I remember
blonde
that.
hair bowl cut. But
Yeah, I remember that.
the ability for him to come back continuously and be re-embraced each time that he comes back is dope. Like you said, Anakin, he's scarred here on the side of his face due to the fight with Asajj Ventress, and even she got to come back. There was talk that she died, and then she
Yeah.
mentions how in the what is it, the Bad Batch, that like the the mother's uh what is it, what's the name of that their cult, the the Night Sisters, how
The
they
Night
have more
Sisters,
than
yeah.
one, like a cat, they have more than one life, they have like 9 lives or something, whatever. Even she had a resurgence because of a cult following, and that kind of helped bring her back. So Dave Filoni, like you mentioned, there's very subtle and rich, fertile ground for people to continue to build and expand upon this universe. Hence, you got the Mandalorian. I don't like the fact that they got the little baby Yoda joint, but uh, it does.
I like Baby Yoda, man. I like that.
Man,
I like Baby Yoda.
nah, man.
Baby Yoda's cute, man. I like. Come on, man.
Nah, I'm not
I
messing with
like that
Grogu.
little.
I'm not messing with Grogu,
I like.
man.
I like that little thing,
Nah,
man.
man.
That little thing. I remember. I bought. I bought my nephew. one of them joints, man. And that thing would be walking around the house, man.
Yeah, see,
It
that's why I'm
looked
not
like
messing with it.
that thing was like Josh Terrifying,
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm not
actually.
messing with it.
Like,
It's like
in the,
what's that? Santa on the shelf or the troll on the shelf, whatever the joint.
the Elf on the Shelf, Elf
Yeah,
on the
man.
Shelf,
Nah, I'm
right?
not messing
Yeah.
with that, yo.
I, you be in the dark, man. You
Yeah.
see that little thing walking
Nah,
across, and
man.
with the big
I'm
eyes,
gonna
it
punt
would be
that
crazy.
joint, yo, across the board. Yo, nah, man.
But it's everything you're saying though. It just is true. I mean, there's just such a rich ground, a fertile ground of storytelling
Yeah.
that it's capable at that point. And so it's just so much you can do with this, and it really starts with this movie. It's like so much is a building ground
Mm-hmm.
for some of those other things, man. I know one of the other points that we wanted to talk about was the idea of like the fixation and obsession
Yeah.
part. And I know there was something that you want to bring up with that. So what do you want to say about that part?
Yeah, a good story always has the ability to compare, contrast, and juxtapose a wide array of elements. So you got Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I'm going to start off with the most obvious one. You got Obi-Wan Kenobi, and there's an episode in which, in the Clone Wars, towards the final seasons, in which you start to learn that he has this crush, if you will, on Satine, the Emperor Satine of Mandalore. And they never consummate the relationship, but you know that there's a deep passion. And if he were to ever
Mm-hmm.
leave the order, he would leave the order for her. Well, you don't get that in the stories in the first trilogy. So,
Right.
being able to have that gives you the perfect context in which, you see the struggles of Padme and Anakin, which I don't think everyone was totally aware. There's allusions to people getting an understanding or thinking like, oh yeah, the Jedi kind of knew that he was with her, but I mean, let's keep it a buck, man. Like, if they knew that this cat was actually sleeping with Princess, like Queen Amidala, who later becomes Senator Amidala, if they were so opposed to attachments, they would have severed that from the rip, or they would have kicked him out. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So I don't think that they knew. And I think, matter of fact, if they did know, they willingly had a blind eye to it, which continues the disservice that they've done to him. My mom always told me that there's sins of admission and sins of omission, and the fact that these
Mm-hmm.
individuals continuously omit the truth from everyone. Like, nobody ever put their true selves in front of everyone. You got your man, Mace Windu, constantly be player hating, talking about like, yo, I don't like this dude, I don't trust this dude, and then you start doing the research, and the cat, he thought he was the chosen one. It's the reason why he created the style that he had, in which he teeters back and forth on the light and the dark side. And even he had to be warned in his youth, like, hey, be easy. You don't want to go too far. You stray too far, and you're going to go into the dark. And I think, playing off of that is the real dynamic of the relationships, in which they, let's face facts, they manipulated him. Hey, Anakin, we don't.
And you're saying they like the
Oh, the
Jedi
Jedi themselves,
manipulated
Anakin.
Anakin.
Yeah,
Okay.
like, yeah,
Okay.
we don't really like you messing with Palps, but you know what? Go ahead one time and go hook it up and let us know what's going on with this dude. Spy on him. They,
that
how
was
shady is
messed
that,
up.
man? Like, they
Yeah,
knew that.
that was beat
Yeah,
up.
he was a walking
Yeah, that was
contradiction.
beat up.
Like, look but don't touch, taste but don't swallow. Like, what are you talking about, man? Like, you're setting him up for failure. You don't trust him, but you put him in the lion's den. You put him on the council, but he doesn't have the rank of master. What did you think this young boy that you said he was given such a
Yeah.
prestigious honor at such an unprecedented young age was going to say? Oh yeah, thank you for giving me only half of the equation. Um,
Well, wait, well, I wanted to say something about that. I think that particular part though is about Palpatine. That's an example I think of Palpatine playing the long game, because I think Palpatine knows the Jedi really well.
mhm,
And I think he knows that the Jedi, like you were saying, they're very dogmatic. It's very rule driven, order driven. He knew that they would never just make Anakin a master because they put him on the council.
yeah,
He knew that they were going to do that. So he kind of set the beauty of it is that Palpatine, like I said, he's thinking like 10 years from now, and the Jedi are thinking like 2 weeks from now.
mhm,
Like they're thinking like, hey, we killed Maul. That's good. And Palpatine is like, cool, no problem. I got this old guy on the back burner ready, right? they killed Darth Tyrannus or Count Dooku. He's like, cool, no problem. Like he actually goes to the scene. Like he, as soon as he gets back down to Coruscant, he gets on his hologram. He talks to the dudes. He's like, hey, go to Mustafar and check it out. I got a new apprentice coming. He's stronger. He already knew all this stuff. He was playing the long game. So I think with the council part, he knew that they were going to carry things a certain way, and he also knew that Anakin was going to carry it a certain way, which is why when he was like, "What do you mean I can't be on the council?" Everybody's looking at him like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? Of course you can't. Like you're not a master. You can't be a master. Be able to. You're not a master. We're gonna put you on here because your man said you had to be, but we not. It's not legitimate. You didn't earn it."
See, that's where I got the pushback from. They, like you mentioned, they knew that the rule of two, and they've known all along that they've just been like, taking bits and pieces here and there, but they never got to the root. They never identified the key players. So
the main dude.
So like they should have known like this is a setup, but they chose willful ignorance. Then on top of that, to compound their mistake, they kept being more rigid, inflexible. They knew from the rip, they said, yo, our goal is to be peacekeepers. Well, if you're stating first and foremost, like this is my job title and this is my job description, and then all of a sudden you stray from it, of course the population on various planets are gonna be like, yo, what's going on here? Oh, what you doing? Why are you wilding out? And then in turn, this is something I've always had an issue with. The Jedi are nothing more than baby snatchers. Like they literally go planet to planet. They take infants.
wait. That might be the hottest Star Wars take of all time.
Just saying.
The Jedi as baby snatchers. Wow.
I mean, do the math.
Okay, so and you're saying that because they take people with force potential when they're young and take them from the I mean, and it's not wrong.
And then they literally wipe them of what they once were. Remember, you've had plenty of them say, "I don't even remember my parents."
Yeah,
and then
it's not wrong.
And then all of a sudden, they upload a new software. Whoop! This is the Jedi code. Can't stray from it. This is it. And then in turn, you're off. You can go with this stranger, and you're gonna go into a distant planet somewhere, galaxies away, and you're gonna learn how to fight, and you're gonna kill people.
So this is interesting, right? Because before we get, I know we're about to get to the cake here in a second. Before we do, what you're suggesting here is that, for all intents and purposes, the Sith and the Jedi are basically the same.
Yeah, it's a civil war. It's a giant civil war, and the only thing that has changed itself is the characters, but the premise is still the same. Some have been more greedy. There's even been a couple. There's been like one Dark Lord that I've known of. Can't remember his name, but there's one who was like basically a good guy. He didn't fight and kill anybody, but he was still a Sith. Other than that, the rest of them are very tyrannical. They tell you in their name, very insidious, very grieve offending,
Yeah, that. So let me ask you. So the way that you think about the Jedi and the Sith now, did you also see them that way when you were a child, when you were younger?
But again, like we mentioned,
even when in 1990, I guess the 97 was just came out. So 97, and I could be wrong, but if when this came out, you at that time saw the Jedi and the Sith as both being, really two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, because the play has always been the yin and the yang, and George Lucas had idolized a lot of the samurai ninja films, so of course that was going to be incorporated. And then the premise is it's a massive civil war about opposing beliefs. One in which power is the ultimate, and you must lust after it, and it's very definitive as far as who leads and who gets ruled. And then you have these peacekeepers who are the antithesis of that. Hey, let us all love and get along, et cetera, harmony, utopia. I mean, it basically tells the story itself.
That's a good point. That's a good point, man. I would say that, at least from my part, I saw the Jedi and the Sith as being more of a dichotomy, a strict dichotomy, as in the beginning. I think now I agree with you a lot more about exactly how they are really a lot more similar than dissimilar. But it's funny, I didn't really see it that way. And I think the way that this movie, and particularly Palpatine, makes that case even to Anakin, like the Jedi and the Sith are basically virtually the same, it's an interesting point. And I think like as time has gone on, people have really come more to exactly what it is that you're saying now.
Well, you think of it. This movie dropped in '05, right? So
Okay, yeah. Oh, wow, it's
yeah,
2005. Wow.
yeah.
Okay, man, I didn't realize. Okay, cool.
Yeah, because I just remember where I was at, what I was doing, et cetera, et cetera. So you
Okay.
got to think. Look, you got these individuals who are very impressionable, and they're thrust into a situation that they have no clue how it even started. Like we're introduced to this story as the Skywalker saga or the Palps revolution.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, but for the most part,
Shout outs to Pout.
yeah, no doubt. But you're talking about thousands and millions of years before then. How did it lead up to this point? And then you have the games where they're
Yeah.
talking about, the golden age of this, and how,
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't even a Skywalker. Most of these individuals, when you're talking about the actual like power source, how did they become? They had electric swords and whips and stuff. You know what I mean? Like they didn't even have a lightsaber or a
Mm-hmm.
kyber crystal. So getting that understanding and that appreciation back then to be able to read the novels, comic books, and things like that, that helped me to be more in
Mm-hmm.
tune with the possibilities of what this truly is about, like the true genesis of this story.
Got it.
Yeah, no doubt.
Got it. Got it. Makes sense. All right, cool. Well, look, man, let's so for those who you might be joining us for the first time, we talk about a little bit about the movie, which we've been doing. We want to jump into a segment that we call the cake. And so on the
Yeah.
cake, we talk about the things that we really liked in the movie. Obviously, in a movie like this, there's so many things that we like, but we try to narrow it down, just, kind of keep things kind of popping. So a couple things that I liked, and we can go back and forth, and I can just kind of hit you with them.
No, go ahead.
So there's three things that I think happened in this movie that I really want to just lift up. The first is, I love the scene where Anakin and Obi-Wan, their last scene talking, where they're like really friends.
Yeah.
And so if you see this scene, it's right when Obi-Wan is about to go off and fight Grievous. And him and Anakin are talking, and Anakin basically gives him his flowers. He says, like, yo, you're the man, you've been a great student, great teacher to me. I know I've been wilding, I'm frustrated. Yo, but it's not on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Obi-Wan is like, nah, man, yo, you're legit. You're the king. You're the prince now. You're going to be the king one day. Don't worry about it. Everything you're going to get all the money you want. Don't worry about it, right? And then, but what's dope about the scene is that Obi-Wan is saying this to him while he's standing in the light. And Anakin in the scene is standing in the shadows. And it's like, you realize one of them is in the light and the other one is in the dark, right? And even in that moment, Obi-Wan goes away and you see Hayden Christensen does a great job of like kind of having a smile, but then its facial expression changes to show like a sense of like disturbance. And it's like just a beautiful scene about showing like how they're going to diverge from that point. So that's one of the cake scenes I want to lift up. The next scene is another scene when Anakin is talking with Palpatine. And this is when Palpatine is finally like, yo, I'm just going to tell this dude I'm dirty and just, this is going to be what it's going to be. Right. So he tells him, so he says to him basically like, look, man, I'm a Sith Lord and like, I can help you if you want this help, I got it for you. Right. And I know I'm making a little funny. Please don't think this is what they're really saying. But Anakin is like, oh, you're evil. I didn't realize it. Now that I know that you're evil, I definitely want to do everything I can to stop you, right? And so he pulls out the lightsaber on him, and that's when Palpatine says, I can feel your anger, makes you stronger, gives you focus, which he says to Luke Skywalker years later in Return of the Jedi. But I just like that scene because it's like, in that moment, Anakin is still a hero. And like I said from the beginning, I like the heroic version of Anakin Skywalker. So I like that he was still trying to do the right thing and, just goes off the rails after that. And then the last thing, and it's funny how all my favorite scenes are in this one part of the movie, is the fight between Windu and Palpatine. I just like the fight. It's like one of the strongest elements of the prequel trilogy is the lightsaber fighting is just very well done. The choreography around it. If you look at the first trilogy, the it's like kind of like people fighting with baseball bats a little bit. But these are like really like elegant in their design. And this one is like watching like your two old uncles like fight at your barbecue, like with boxing gloves on. They both can fight a little bit. They had a little Hennessy, and they're just fighting a little bit. And it's just fun to watch. This is a great fight, and that's just my three favorite scenes. That's like my favorite things from the movie, man. That's my cake.
Two
Mr.
older
Will, what you
young
got?
uncles who got the yak in the system.
Yo, and if they feel like you've been there when you go out, you've been at your family reunion, your uncles would be like, hey, man, I can take you. And you remember when growing up, we used to always have boxing gloves. So we'd have boxing gloves in the house. Your uncles get out there, they're like, yo, come on, let's do it. It would be fun, man.
You don't know how many
It's fun to watch
stories that evokes, man. Like the challenges from the younger generation to the old. I always tell these people, man, old man strength, knowledge, like that stuff don't go away, yo. Like, if
It's
anything,
different.
yeah,
It's different, man.
it hits different, yo. Oh man, that's why it's funny. That's why I was laughing with you, man, because there's truth in them jokes, yo.
It
Man,
is.
oh man, I'm flooded with memories right now, man. My uncle's challenging my grandfather and stuff, and getting their butts handed to them terribly. You know what I mean? Like,
Old men can fight, man. That's the message. You watching Palpatine with his gray
yeah,
hair, and Mace Windu looks all old, but them dudes can get
yeah,
down, man.
yeah. They don't
They
want
have a
that
nice
work.
little battle,
They
man.
don't want that, yo. They don't
You
want
know what I'm
no
saying?
parts of that.
You know?
Oh man, especially when Palpatine just like yo, if he was a butcher, he just like sliced and diced cats. Like it was sad to
He did.
yo. It was sad to see how he just ran through them. Like Kit Fisto was gone in minutes, man. I like Kit Fisto, yo. Like it didn't, yo.
Yeah, he had a great design,
Yeah,
man.
like yo, Palpatine just hit him with the spin one time, like spinning in the air with the giant.
Right,
Like he just cleaved through them
right.
joints, yo. Like a machete through like weeds, yo. Knife through hot butter. It just
Yo, yo, as soon as that little lightsaber came
yeah.
out of his sleeve, he hit you with the desperado joint and jumped up there. He was like, yo, I'm about this life.
You don't want
Y'all, no, wait, y'all thought he was like, wait, y'all think I'm just talk? No, yo, my name is my name. Like he hit him with that joint.
yeah, he did. Like it's just space and opportunity, and I'm about to remove the space. What you want, yo? Oh man, it's crazy.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's crazy.
Pouch, man.
Yeah, they ain't want no parts of this. Is a dude who killed his master in his sleep. I'm like, yo, he's about that life, yo. He's vicious. His name is
what I'm
Sidious.
saying?
Like,
He
yo,
does. He is.
it's Sidious for a reason.
Right.
Oh man.
Yo,
Oh
my name
man.
is my name.
My name is my name. Like CJ, I got a lot of scenes that I'm so partial to, but narrowing it down to these three, oh man, it was a difficult decision, but I was able to do it. First one for me is the opening dogfight scene, culminated by Anakin saying, "Now the
Great
fun
scene.
begins." CJ and I talked
Yep.
about this in the pre-production meeting where they hit a swarm of killer bees. Shout out to Wu-Tang, and then all of a sudden it's just a few of them starfighters, not like a million. No, it's overwhelming odds, which makes it more compelling. Like, will there, won't they? Even though we know that Anakin and Obi-Wan are going to get through, but what about the peripheral guys who are there, whatever have you? So that really did it for me. But in the grand scheme of things, you're talking about, just to backtrack for that group dynamic that I was referencing before. You have these individuals who are, dealing with a support system, dealing with guidance and role models and calling upon the strengthened bond. Nothing I've never served, but I've always heard from my uncles and my cousins, that and I could relate this, and I hope it doesn't sound off-putting, to sports, where you don't play for the coach per se. You don't fight for the general. You fight for the guys standing to your left and your right. You play for the guys that are on the bench on the team. And one of the things that I've always missed is the fact that, like, I'm not in the locker room, whether it be for basketball, baseball, football, with those guys anymore. And the jokes before the games and the bus rides and, the little celebratory stuff that some people might do, and how other guys, they don't need to get amped up. Like, just that feel of brotherhood and everybody striving for a common cause, which is the reason why, I like certain things in this movie more so than others. And then you got those shared memories that come as a result of being on those battlefields. Anakin they have that joke where they're like, yeah, this is the 10th time that I've had to save you. And he's like, no, that business on that other planet, that don't count. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's more the reason why I viewed them as brothers rather than father and son. You know, the proximity in age, the closeness of being on that ground
Mm-hmm.
and up and running. Like there's certain things that my dad can't do that I can do. So it's a different feel. Whereas the things that I can do with my brothers, you know, it's a shared experience. Like it's a peer level. You know, I remember instead of trying to challenge my dad to a boxing match, it was a race. And my dad was quick. He ran track in college.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was finally able to beat him, that was like I had accomplished everything in one moment. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like I beat him.
Mm-hmm.
It was so close, but I still beat him by a step. And I was just like, yeah, now I got the title.
You were
Now
happy.
I got the belt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that dogfight scene really evoked a plethora of memories for me. And then I'm dealing with the Anakin versus Count Dooku slash Darth Tyrannus. Like,
Great fight. Yeah,
yo,
that was a great
he
fight.
wanted to
Yeah, I
get his
like
lick
that.
back,
I
man.
like
Like,
that.
yeah, he's like, yo, you first of all, your girl got me on the face. Now I'm walking
Yeah, I
around with
like
this
that.
permanent scar, and I was pretty. Now I'm just
Yeah.
handsome. You know what I mean? Now I'm rugged. Chicks dig scars, yeah, but I was pretty before. Now you came and compounded my insult with an injury. You severed my arm, man. Like how I'm gonna be in tune with the
Mm-hmm.
force to full capacity to rock everybody's world when I got half an arm. You know, I got
With
this.
one arm,
Yeah, I
right?
got this nub over here, man. Yeah, so he was like, "Yo, I got to get mine, yo." And the fact that you got your man
Mm-hmm.
Palbs in the background, like, get him, like he switched up his tone and everything. That should have been enough for Anakin to know.
Hold on. That was a great hold on. That was a great Palpatine voice you
I
just did right
appreciate
there,
that,
man.
yeah.
I was gonna say, that was really good. You just hit that
Like,
right
yo,
there.
my man, just like he was
That was
all,
real that was
yo.
that was really good.
Well, you know, like you, I had
Yeah.
to rewatch it one time before we got on the podcast, and I was just sitting there. I was like, "Yo, this cat was all like happy-go-lucky," and all of a sudden, the nastiness came out of him. Like, he's vicious.
It did.
He was
Yeah.
tying up loose ends,
It did.
relishing the damage and
It did.
and the carnage all about him and stuff, yo. And he even topped it off like, "Leave him."
Yes.
Like what? And Anakin snapped back and was like,
Yeah, he tried getting to leave Obi-Wan
he's like,
behind. Yeah.
nah, his fate will be the same as ours. And it was just, it's just like, wow,
Yeah.
this dude is duplicitous. Like, wow, okay, I
Yeah.
see what type of time you on.
Yeah.
And then again, that goes
Yeah.
back.
And
Yeah,
can I just jump okay.
yeah, no, go
I
ahead, please.
I just want to say that fight, yeah, the Anakin Dooku fight, it's a great fight. It's just great, like just the way that they're fighting with the lightsabers, the
Mm-hmm.
way Anakin switches up his style
Yeah,
in the middle of the fight to match Dooku. I mean, it's just great. Yeah, that's a great. I wish I would have brought that one.
I
It was
mean,
great. It's a
just the
great
fact that
scene.
he
It is.
said
It
like,
really.
"Yo, my power has increased since last we met," and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, so double the
Yeah. My power
fall
just
with double the
doubled. Yeah.
pride, okay?" And he's still thinking like, "Yo, that's that
Yeah.
young boy that I meat cleaved his arm off." Like, nah, homeboy, I had visions about like, yo, knocking you off the throne. Like, this my time. So you know that
Yep.
really crystallized things for me going into this early on. Like, oh, we're dealing with a different version of Anakin. Like he's about, and you got to remember too, it wasn't as
Mm-hmm.
in depth with the cartoons of the Clone Wars at that point just yet. You didn't see visceral Anakin going about just
Yeah.
going cutting through swarms of enemies and stuff and getting the berserker rage on. Like that wasn't that type of time just yet. Which leads to my last joint,
Yeah.
culminating in the battle between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin on Mustafar. Everything leading up
Absolute
to it,
classic. Classic.
definitely classic scene. And I mean, you're talking about the fact
Classic
that
scene.
Obi-Wan has to let him know,
Amazing.
like, no, you didn't want to lose her. Padme, that is. You drove her away by your actions. She told you. You're
Mm-hmm.
leading her down a path that she can't follow. Her heart's not there. You're breaking her heart, et cetera, et cetera. And too many times we get evoked in, I mean, we just get swept away in emotion that we're not able to see level headedness. We're not able to see the forest from the trees and snap back out of it. It usually takes us to actually see the damages and the bodies on the battlefield to be like, oh, what did I do? And for him, he choked
Yeah.
her out. He lost his arms. He lost all of his limbs. Matter of fact, his hair. Like, and that was one of the things he had
Yeah.
going for him. You know what I'm saying? Like, the ladies was loving them some Anakin. Nah, your golden locks are gone, homeboy. You ain't got no arms now. Forget the scars you got. You need a whole skin graft, man. Like, you on life support.
Yo, that fight, yeah, that fight is like there's so much expectation on watching that fight,
Mm-hmm.
and they deliver.
Oh yeah.
Like it delivers. It delivered on the expectation of what you would have expected to see
Mm-hmm.
a fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin Skywalker. The time that both men put into
Yeah, the
the training for that,
choreography
the
for that.
choreography,
Yeah.
everything, it shows. I mean, like just the movement, like it's just. And then the other thing is that they also do this great job of showing a similar version of the same style, which then reminds you that one person trained the other person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like so it's so many beautiful layers to it.
Yeah.
Man, it's a classic scene, man.
And I think the fact
I
that
love
they're
watching
on the
that.
defensive end too, like so their opening stances, they're actually to foresee what this
Mm-hmm.
one person is going to do, the counterintuitiveness. I mean, but then
Yeah.
again, that goes back to my point about obsession and fixation. You know, you got Anakin who's totally consumed by trying to avoid more pain, more hardship, more death, and the avoidance of it that he brings it about. He
Yep.
becomes the thing that he fears the most. You know, Palpatine with his
Yep.
wicked self talking about in your haste, you killed her. And then he's like, no. And then my man is laughing, yucking it up, loving his pain, like just
Yeah.
like just eating it
Yeah.
up. Like, what is you doing, yo?
Yeah.
Like, that's your
Yeah.
man's. That's your
More power
man's.
to the dark side. Man. That
Yeah.
is, yeah.
You know, and then
Yeah, it's more power to the dark side,
it
man.
expresses his lust of power at the expense of everyone. The fact that he just tossed Darth Maul away,
Yeah.
and you know Darth Maul comes back because of his hatred of being tossed away. Like Palpatine has a way of choosing those sycophants that are a creation of tragedy. Maul losing his parents, losing his way, being thrust amidst hardship and pain, losing the Night Sisters, his brother Saj Press coming back, trying to help him, losing him to Palpatine. Palpatine basically saying like, "You ain't even worth it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna let you rock. You ain't even worth my blade." And then you know, in turn,
Mm-hmm.
Asajj Ventress comes in, and she's devoted, another former Jedi who's gone the way of the darkness because she was consumed with the death of her master. Like you see the reoccurring theme, you see the foreshadowing, you see
Yeah.
plenty of plot
Yeah.
devices in which you know you're dealing with individuals who are thrust into a love triangle. There's the juxtaposition of this person and that theme, you know, the imagery, the hyperbole. I mean, like you could go on and on with all the plot devices they use, foreshadowing, fast forwarding. Like it, this is a gumbo of everything, and it's the reason why you have these individuals who go to these movie theaters on every opening day with such hope, hence the term new hope,
Yeah.
with these movies being better
Yeah.
than
So
what they
much
were.
passion for
Yeah,
it.
definitely.
Yeah. So much passion for it. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, I mean, that, and to their credit, I will say that I think the production around Star Wars has tried, if one movie or one show didn't meet expectations of the
And they
fans,
come out with
they
another.
then tried to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
They try to fix it. Like, oh yeah, you didn't like that product? Okay, cool.
We
We're
got
gonna give
this
you
for
this
you.
new joint. You
Yeah.
know, so like, yeah, it's like it's a really good part there, man. I do want to just go back to one thing about the Obi-Wan and Anakin fight, man. The fight is amazing. I've always been, I think maybe as I've gotten older watching movies, I find that the action scenes I like, but sometimes I like the moments right before the
Mm.
action. And I love in that scene the part where Anakin is talking to Padme, right? And Padme, like, she doesn't know that he's Darth Vader now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he still got the same voice and everything. And there's like a scene, it's so subtle. She's like, yeah, Obi-Wan knows about us. He wants to help us. And Anakin looks at her like, nah, nah, that's not what this is. Like, nah. Obi-Wan is the ops now.
Nah,
You don't understand.
it's
Like,
on site.
we're way past, yeah, we're way past us being
Yeah.
friends.
Nah, there ain't gonna be no
You don't
conversations.
really know how far, right? You don't know how far this is going off track.
Yeah,
And then as soon as he sees Obi-Wan at the top of the steps, he goes nuts.
he just
And
tosses
that's
off
the
his
thing, is
war.
like, right, he just went nuts. And it's like just the lead up to the fight. Like, the fight is gonna be good,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like the lead up is like the press conference. It's like
Yeah.
watching the press conference between
Yeah,
two
yeah, yeah.
boxers. Like, they about to get it in.
Yeah.
When especially when Obi-Wan is like, only a Sith believes in absolutes.
Salutes.
I will do as I must. And you say kind of like, oh, you about to get this dude? Like you really about
You
it?
about to get this
Like so,
work.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that. I just want, yeah, I just wanted to add that, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay, so yeah, so that's so that's the cake. So the other thing we talk about is like things that once again, if this is your first time listening, things that we don't like quite as much about the movie. We call it hate, but hate is like rhymes with cake, so that's why we do it. It's not scientific. All right, so I don't have a whole bunch of things. I got two things that about this. First is I would have loved to have seen Anakin Skywalker as Darth Vader in the Jedi Temple, blowing through the different Jedi. Like, I know you get the scene with him in there. He pulls out the lightsaber, and younglings are there, and that he killed the younglings. But it would have been nice to see him fight the other Jedi and to see the level of mastery that he has and the skill that he has above the other Jedi. I know they just didn't show it, and they've kind of shown a little glimpses of pieces of it in
holocrons
the
and
other
the joints.
movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it would have been good to actually see that. Second thing is, I just like the character of General Grievous. So you have to really watch the cartoon to know a lot of the background on Grievous. He kind of shows up. Maybe he's in the movie. Maybe he's in this movie for about 10 minutes, actually. Maybe not even 10 minutes. But it's like you don't really get a lot of the richness of him. And the story, it's almost like like Lucas knows, hey, you got to watch the Clone Wars to find out more about him. So I'm not even going to bother with a lot of exposition. I would have liked to have seen more Grievous on camera. And those are the two things. So I think it's both of these are like what I didn't see that I wish I saw more of.
Got you. Yeah, man. So I only got two too. Real quick, Anakin's betrayal and him becoming a cyborg. I've already expanded upon my rationale behind that, and then the unfortunate demise of Padme. It would have been dope for her to be the guiding light to bring Anakin back into the fold. It would have been more symbolic. It would have crystallized things. It would have been more poignant. Definitely ironic and shoveling it back into the Jedi's face. Like, this is what you stood on. These were the principles that you were talking about. Forgiveness, redemption, accepting the fact that people are fallible. And yet here you go, basically sending my husband's brother on a revenge tour killing spree to get rid of him. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah. Yeah, and you knew I was pregnant with his kids, so he killed his the father of his niece and nephew. Like, how grimy can you get? It's like insult to injury, man.
The way that you're framing it, man.
I mean,
the way that you're framing it, it definitely makes the Jedi look like villains.
I'm saying, man,
you're definitely on that platform. I see where you're going. I see what you're saying, man. I definitely see what you're saying with that. The other thing is that once again, I think this is where there's room. If there was like a Darth Vader series, you could get into those feelings about like, what is it like? Like, is he thinking about Padme ever? Is he thinking like when he sees somebody, does he see her the way Obi-Wan in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series was seeing him? Like when he was seeing like little Anakin's different places. So who knows, man? We'll have to see how that goes. All right, so we got a couple questions from the movie. So just some things in the movie, some things around the movie, just some questions that we have for each other after watching it. Yeah. I got a couple here. I'm just gonna hit you with, and I can't wait to hear your answers. Actually, based on everything that you said so far. So the first question I have, is, and this is about kind of all of the little secrets that are in this movie. About the relationships between people and whatnot. Is this movie a referendum on secrets and secret relationships?
Oh man, that was an excellent question, man, because it made me really contemplate. Because the obvious relationship is that between Anakin and Padme, but I think it's a little bit deeper than that. You're talking about the relationship with him and Yoda, the relationship with him, and obviously with Obi-Wan, but you also have like the council itself. Again, he was put on the council. And typically if you're on the council, you're a master. And now he can see, live and direct, how Qui-Gon felt when he left the council because of the rigidness, the dogma that they instill in one another. And, these guys are in an echo chamber. They're really on some Jim Jones, like sipping the Kool-Aid, man. You know what I mean? So, you're talking about really what I tried to do is boil it down to the important questions that have to be asked, which is it limited to just the
it's
romantic and or the
it's
sexual
it,
relationships, which was the
the
obvious Padme, et cetera, and then the
that
Satine Obi-Wan joint, that infatuation, lust, love. And then you're talking about, does it encompass the other types of the undisclosed connections? For example, the financial and the professional. The separatists, they had the banking guild, and they were about getting that paper and the spices, and so you got the the what was it, the son of the red mark or the red sun or something like that, like all those crime conglomerates, the huts and everybody doing their thing, the
mm-hmm,
bounty hunters,
mm-hmm,
they all had something to lose and to gain by doing business with the empire. And Palpatine, with his lust
yeah,
for power, he's willing to manipulate anyone. I mean, he's got, not only did he have his own professional guard, but he had, I forget their names offhand, but he had the two sidekicks. And in the comic book, there's this bald headed chick that he was rocking with, who ended up supposedly having one of his kids or something like that, like, one of his courtesans. So this cat is out here manipulating everyone left and right. Um, but then you're talking about, the secrecy that has to be addressed. Everything going on behind closed doors and the compartmentalization. You know, you had
mm-hmm,
individuals like that were literally losing their lives based upon lies and secrets and omission and admission. So, what's the saying? The web we weave to deceive is the web something whatever. I forget how it goes, but basically the analogy is like a spider weaving an
yeah. I know what you mean.
intricate
Yeah,
web, and
yeah.
everybody
I know
gets
what you mean.
caught in all those lies. You know what I mean? And I just have a problem with the forget the fact that I personally don't like secrets, because it means like you don't feel comfortable. You feel the need to distract someone with an image that isn't real. So how can you really have a true understanding or a true rapport with someone if you're doing all this? And it's based upon inequality. You know, Anakin was, like I said,
So,
thrust.
so yeah, I was gonna say. So, given that, do you think the movie is trying to say this is why all this destruction happens is because of these secret relationships, because of
I think that's a
the
major
fact that
part.
so much is being hidden from people,
I think it's a major part of it, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. There's other
It's
components to it, like this so-called this legacy that they is so intertwined with the prophecy, and even the Sith had their
Yep.
own, where they believed that there was someone that was going to be thrust among them to lead them, even though it meant for the dissolution of all of the Sith. Like, remember, there was like a bunch of these dudes, hundreds of them, thousands of them, and then
mm,
Darth Bane comes down with the rule of two. So, all of them are
yeah.
complicity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's a good point. It's a good point. And I'm glad you brought up that part about just the idea of like how every side has kind of got their little secrets to them and how everybody
Yeah.
kind of goes down the drain as a result. That's a good point too as well. All right, cool. All right, so here's my next question. This one is much more kind of grounded in
Yeah.
what you actually see in the movie. So there's we talked a little bit earlier about the Mace Windu against Palp's fight.
Hmm.
And there's a point where Windu looks like he's definitely going to beat Palpatine, but you also kind of get the sense that Palpatine is kind of playing chicken a little bit because like he knows Anakin is in the room and he
Oh
wants you to
yeah.
see something. My question is, who do you think wins a straight up fight to the end without Anakin getting involved between Palpatine and Mace Windu?
Oh, I think Mace gives him the business. I think the whole fact that
Okay.
Anakin intervened saved Palpatine's hide, man.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I can see. I always wonder. I always wonder with that scene, like whether or not Palpatine kind of knows that Anakin is on his way.
Oh yeah, of
Like
course he
he
knows.
like can he feel oh, Anakin is on his way here. If I kind of play this a certain way, I can really push him over the top. I always think like, is that a part of what I'm seeing here? And I always wonder about that.
I think definitely that's what you're seeing. I don't even think it's a question. Remember, like you so artfully illustrated, this dude was thinking 10 years, 15 years into the future, and he was playing it out. Give them a little,
Yeah.
let them think that they have victories here and there. But in the meantime, like the say, like he says, like Dirty says, no, yeah, like Dirty says in He says, shaking your right hand and I'm stabbing you with the left. And then I think Palpatine did that. He knew he was on the ropes. He knew that he couldn't
Yeah.
embody this dude. And that's why I think Mace also survives that fall, because he's been plotting and scheming in like a cave or something like that, waiting to get his revenge. You know what I mean? Like, I knew I shouldn't have
So you're
trusted
saying
that dirty
you're saying
boy. Yeah,
so you're
man.
saying there's a Mace Windu show coming one day. Got it.
No
Yeah,
question.
probably is.
Like,
Probably
yo,
is.
he's in the cut.
Yeah,
Like,
I would
I
watch it.
knew I told everybody you shouldn't trust that boy. Like, yo, I'm gonna get him.
Yeah.
He gonna get his. Watch. I got you. Cut off my
Mm,
hand. Make me lose my favorite hilt.
yeah.
You don't get
You
him.
know what? You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, man, I'm gonna say this, and if you see it one day, they heard it from us. What if the Darth Vader series was Darth Vader, and in the
Ooh.
end of it, he's got to fight
Right,
Mace
Mace
Windu.
Windu.
Mace Windu
Ooh.
comes back for revenge,
Yeah.
and Mace Windu doesn't know that Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker. He
Ooh.
thinks it, but then Darth Vader tells him, "Nah, I'm
Guess
the
what?
same dude.
I was
It's me. Under all of this, it's still me."
it's still me. And I
That
knew
would
you
be
didn't
crazy.
like me.
That would be crazy. That would be crazy.
That's for talking
That
all
would be
that stuff
crazy.
behind
All
my
right,
back. I got you.
there it is. I'm getting even. I got you now. Yo, all right. So,
I
all right.
got
Here's
you.
my last question, and
Yeah.
this is my last question, and this is the summary, John. Okay, there are 9 Star Wars movies,
Yeah.
right? From 1 to 9, what's your most favorite to the least favorite of the Star Wars movies?
Oh yeah, man. I'm running with The Empire Strikes Back, Revenge of the Sith, Return of the Jedi, A New Hope, Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of the Skywalker.
Good
Yeah.
list. Good list.
Yeah.
Good list. Yeah, I'm sure. Like, I know that's a question that everybody just thinks about. That's a good list to hear. So, Revenge of the Sith score is really high for you.
Yeah, man, because it's this is so compelling on so many levels, man. You got the romance, even though it's awkward, but I kind of expect that with someone who basically doesn't know how to love unconditionally. You know what I mean? It's a possessive type of love with
Mm-hmm.
Anakin, and the fact that he's really going through the emotions while he's trying to discover who he is. So I get the whole,
Mm-hmm.
it's you're so beautiful, that's why I love you. You know what I mean? Like all that. Like he could have flipped it like you're radiant because you're giving birth to our child or
Yeah.
whatever. He could have made it come off real smooth, but no, he was just so eager. Like this is the first and only female he's ever been with. So I understand like
Yeah.
how that goes down. You know what I mean? But the latest trilogy
Got it.
in the order they came out, that's the order that they're garbage. You know what I mean? Like they do a great
I
job, like
saw
you
that.
said.
I saw that I got that in your list too.
Yeah, yeah, no, they do a
I got
great
that in your
job.
list too. Yeah, that came across. That came across
Yeah,
real clear.
yeah, they did a great job of being bad. You know what I
All
mean?
right.
Like
Yeah.
that's all I can say, man. Luke looks like a homeless person, man, drinking blue milk, like it was beer or something, caught in his crusty curmudgeon beard, man. Like he's so cynical. I mean,
Yeah.
Daisy is nothing more than a clone of Palpatine, or his granddaughter, a clone of, you know what I mean? Like, it's so
His granddaughter.
convoluted, man. It's just straight
Yeah.
garbage. Killing off everybody just so that they can bring back the same characters in a different body. You know, the
Yeah.
confusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Only thing I liked is color.
If we had to do
That's it.
if we had to do a show about those movies, it would look a lot different. It wouldn't be. We wouldn't even do a show. It would be a lot. It would be a lot different show. All right. Anyway, that's my questions. What you got for questions?
Yeah, man. So, and yes, it would be a lot different. Like we could probably finish it in 5 minutes versus our typical length of showtime.
Mm-hmm.
But my questions for you are as follows: why didn't the Jedi spend more time with Anakin?
Yeah, Anakin. Yeah. So I think this one is a lot to do with the Clone Wars.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna say that when you look at Attack of the Clones, once Attack of the Clones starts, at the end of that movie, when Yoda says "Begun the Clone War has,"
Hmm.
this is like the beginning of the Clone Wars, and at that point, the Jedi get scattered across the universe, so
Hmm.
they're in different places. They're not really a cohesive unit anymore, and I think that's what takes away from them really getting with Anakin and really probably doing a lot of things that he needed for him
Yeah.
to make sure that he doesn't go nuts, which he did.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can see that now.
Which he did.
Yeah. They were spread thin. The counselors that could have assisted him, guided him, nurtured him, tutored him,
They out in the street.
mentorship.
They out fighting.
Yeah, they out handling this. I got you. Why didn't the Jedi screen / examine the clone troopers? Why they just so willingly welcome them in?
They didn't. Yeah, that's just a flaw in their thing. I think the thing is they never really quite figure out why the army was created, the clone army was created, what that all means. And I think part of it is like, once again, tying back to the Clone Wars. And I think the genius, so this gets all back to Palpatine, like the Clone Wars is so disruptive that I think it just puts the Jedi on the back burner, like it puts them on their heels and they don't really recover. So they're just in the midst, they go from a planning group to a reactionary group. And they're just reacting. And whenever you're operating like that, even in real life, you're never taking the time to check to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. You're just dealing with chaos. And I think that's what's happened to them. And obviously in this case, it burned them because had they really been doing their due diligence, they may have thought, hey, maybe we shouldn't be around these things.
See, and that's the thing.
But people make that mistake with, AI.
Dude, don't even get me started on that. Like, we've seen the Terminator movies, we've seen iRobot, we know how this story ends. It's not pretty. Yo, I seen the joint where they talking about vegetarian robots who can eat degradable human beings in flesh, man. It's just in the news, yo. It's crazy. How's a robot designed to consume organics, but they're vegetarians? What's attack dogs with flamethrowers on their backs? Like, come on, man. Yo, I can't even touch upon it, man. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, yo. I don't even understand the logic. But getting back to the joint with Anakin, that even though the Jedis were spread thin, I'm not sure if it's even like, he counsels with the one above all Jedis in Yoda. And you've seen it before, whether it be in this movie or in the Clone Wars, where he's like, I got attachments and this, that, and the third. And, don't be afraid to lose things. Life and death are a partnership. Well, he could have used some expansion on that to help tide him over, giving him some something to read or something to expand upon. You know what I mean? Ask for specifics, more probing questions. This whole dictator and I'll just talk down to you stuff, that's not cutting it for him. And I think they should have seen that coming. Like, that was so obvious, you know what I mean? But whatever, it is what it is at this point. My next question for you is, let me see, did the Jedi willingly turn a blind eye to Anakin's and Padme's relationship?
Okay, so you talked about this a little bit earlier. I'm gonna say two things about this. One is the Jedi as a group did not know about Anakin and Padme's relationship. However, if you watch the final season of the Clone Wars, there is a scene where Obi-Wan does suggest that he does know that Anakin and Padme are in a relationship, right? It's almost as if Obi-Wan is aware that there's something, Anakin is aware that Obi-Wan's aware, Padme is aware that Obi-Wan's aware, but they all agree to not say it. So as long as they don't say it directly, it's like Obi-Wan doesn't feel compelled to act. Yeah, he doesn't feel compelled to act. Right.
All right. He doesn't have to out
in this movie. Okay. Yeah, he doesn't. In Revenge he has plausible deniability. Right. In Revenge of the Sith, there's two things. Right. There's one scene where Anakin is like, he's in Padme's apartment, and he's like, "Oh, was Obi-Wan here?" Right. So he can feel Obi-Wan here, and she's like, "Yeah, he came by. He said he was concerned about you. Blah blah blah. You got a lot of stress." Well, that tells me that he's aware of something between them, because he sees her as a confidant that he feels like he can go and talk about Anakin's challenges to, and it still be kind of like safe. You know what I mean? Because he wouldn't say that to Mace Windu.
No.
That, right?
Nah.
Mace wouldn't hear that, right? the other thing is like at the end when he realizes that he's got to get rid of Anakin, and Yoda tells him trust your feelings and you'll find him. He knows exactly where to go. He's like, I'm going to Padme's house and I'm gonna talk to her, and he tells her like, yo, this dude is out of control and I got to get him. So I think Obi-Wan is well aware of the relationship, but I think I want to go back to something that you said about Yoda. Like the thing about the Jedi way is that the Jedi way works if you do it the way that the Jedi do it. And I think every time you get a little bit outside of it, it becomes a little bit less easy of a path to follow, and it makes it less successful. Because the rest of those Jedi, like, yeah, none of them are married, none of them have kids. They don't worry about trying to be rich. They don't worry. Their best friend isn't the Chancellor. Like they don't have those relationships that create the tension that Anakin experiences. Anakin kind of always is a little bit different than the rest of the Jedi. Like they said from the very beginning, they brought him in too old. Like he has the experience of losing his mom. For some reason, they're never aware that he killed all those sand people. No one ever seems to remember or know about that, which is a big miss, right? Because that should have been concerning. They trusted him to a guy who's not the best. He wasn't. His first Padawan was essentially the most powerful Jedi that had ever lived, which was a mistake. But they never really seemed to catch up with all the details of like how he was a little bit outside the line. So this is another example of that. Like he had a relationship with Padme. Obi-Wan kind of knew, but didn't say anything. So you get what you get. That was a little bit
I think
long.
it's more like
a little bit drawn out, but that's where it is.
No, I get it, but I mean, I feel like they just thought that they had a rapport, and I think it's like kind of like with Obi-Wan and Satine, like they like each other, but they haven't done anything. I think that's why he was like, "Yo, we know that Anakin's always been infatuated with her, and she resisted his charms, and she was just like, yo, let's keep it platonic, but you can always come to me." And I think two things though. One, Quinlan Voss was with Asajj Ventress, even though she flirted with Obi-Wan in the beginning. So there was some exceptions. Like Kai Mundi was married to a couple. He had a couple of wives and some
Was
kids.
he?
Yeah, because he was like,
see,
the
look,
his.
so look, you really got the deep knowledge
Yeah,
of
no,
Star
that's what I'm
Wars.
saying. That's
Like,
why I'm.
I'm still in the shadow and a little bit on this, man. You breaking out characters like like I would have to look through like, wait, is it like I could go to Star Wars encyclopedia joint to find this first. I didn't even know that. So go ahead, you go.
Yeah,
That's what's up.
So like there are exceptions, but they're like because
Yeah.
Kai Mundi's race, there's very little men, so he has to have a very polyamorous
I got you.
polygamy type situation going on. And Quinlan Voss,
I
they
got
sent
you.
him undercover, so he had to do certain things, and that's how he hooked up with Asajj Ventress. So in their mind, it's plausible deniability, hence the secrets, hence the reason why I'm like, yeah, they did bring about their own downfall, because when they wanted to be complicit in some dirt, it was good. But when they didn't want to, then it's like, yo, nah, you can't do that. And Anakin, he's more like, nah, man, you haven't been forthright. I peeped all this. I peeped your game. And now you wanna try and cast stones at me? Nah, I'm not with that. And so they should have known he had a rebellious streak. I mean, from his garb to his mannerisms, like
the clothes are a dead giveaway. I always think about. Hey, wait a second. So all the rest of y'all were in like brown and white, and this dude is in jet black. Y'all didn't think that was a problem.
You know what I mean? Like, yo, y'all got the cream and the caramel colors. My man got out the mocha, the dark brown, and then he's just like, yo, I'm outright black now. Like, no more shades of brown. Nah.
Yeah.
I'm with that darkness.
Yeah, that's funny.
Well, it is
that
what
is
it is.
Funny.
Yeah, man. My last question for you, man. Again, in line with the in-story type joints is, let me get to this joint before we get to the popcorn. Was Yoda really that unaware that Chancellor Palpatine was Darth Sidious?
Yeah, so this is another good one, man. And this is one where, like, as we've been talking about this whole movie, this is one where the answer is kind of hinted at in the movies, but then you got to kind of read outside of that, the lines to get that. So there is a scene in, I think it's Attack of the Clones, where Mace Windu says, we should let the we should let the Senate know that our ability to use the Force is diminished,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's been going down. And they never really explain like why that is. And I know for me, I've always wondered how it is that Palpatine could always be around the Jedi and then never be like, wait a second, we feeling the dark side is in the room
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. Is it you? So I've always thought about that. But apparently, there's another Star Wars story that was written that deals with this idea of the Force as the way the Jedi use it depends on there being a sense of balance towards harmony around them.
Mm.
And that as it gets more and more chaotic and violent and dangerous and painful, the Jedi's ability to use the Force actually declines
Mm.
because it's rooted in the light side. So what I'm saying is that like because of how the Clone Wars, once the Clone Wars happen, you have an intergalaxy war, a lot of death, a lot of suffering, Jedi ranks as well as other people as well. From that point forward, the Jedi's power was being diminished because their access to the positive living force was being disrupted. On top of that, Palpatine is also kind of strong enough with the force that he can kind of shield himself in the chaos.
Mm.
So he's like, it's like you'll get this reference. It's almost like remember in the Loki series how the female Loki could hide in
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
catastrophic events, which
yeah.
is why the TVA couldn't
Couldn't
find her
find her.
because she could
Yeah,
always do that, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that kind of thing. So that's my answer for that. I never thought it was like I used to think it was like maybe Palpatine is stronger than everybody. He is very strong, but I think it's
Yeah.
also he's being helped out by knowing that there's all this chaos which he
Mm-hmm.
created because like we said from the beginning, he's playing the long game.
Yeah. No, I dig it,
So
man. It's tight.
that's my yeah, that's my joint span. All right, so let's get into the popcorn. So for those if it's your first time with us, we use popcorn to rate the movies, man. We go from 1 to 5. If we give something a 1, it's like the popcorn that's all kernels that cracks your teeth when you buy it, sends you right to the dentist. As soon as you take a bite, you know it. If you ever had them little kernels will tear your teeth up. You don't want that
Yeah,
to
that's
happen to
real
you.
talk.
2 boxes of popcorn, 2 boxes of popcorn is like it's all right. It's more kernel than you would like, and it's a little dry, but you can make it work with some other things you might be eating. 3 boxes of popcorn is like, okay, this is good. It's good popcorn. It's good all the way through, but maybe lacking some flavor. So it's not what you would want, but it's gonna make it work. 4 boxes of popcorn gets you to a place where it's like, okay, this is some really high quality popcorn. It might come in its own special cup. You know what I mean? Like, did you take home cup, whatever? That it's that kind of thing. You don't really want to share that with the person next to you. You want them to buy their own. 5 boxes of popcorn is the conflict-free popcorn that like comes with like a little QR code that you can scan and find out where the popcorn was raised. So that like it's popcorn that was definitely designed specifically for you to be eating it in this movie theater at this time, right? So that's how we rate the popcorn. So going from 1 to 5, and we rated a 1, it's not that great, right? If we give it a 5, that means like we're really co-signing on it all the way. So for this
Oh,
movie,
God.
hopefully by the time now I was talking about it, where I am with it, this is a 4.5 for me. This is my second favorite Star Wars movie next to The Empire Strikes Back. So many things I like about it. So 4.5 for me. Mr. Will, what you got?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, fam. 4.5. Yeah, second favorite as we went down the list. So much memories that just pop into my head. Love the cinematography. I love the action, the choreography. I love the fact that you grew up with some of these characters. If you're young, you can identify with them because they have a lot of relatable traits. Yeah, rocking with 4.5, solid.
Mm-hmm.
Good date movie.
Yeah, how about that? So look, we got inter-rated reliability on our first show back
Yes,
in
sir.
season 4, so that's what's up there. All right, so let's close it out with any major themes. And Mr. Will, I'm gonna turn it over for you to just like let us know like major themes that you saw in this movie.
Oh man, I think I highlighted a lot of these things in the beginning. You're talking about brotherhood, alliance, allegiance, love,
Mm-hmm.
uh, entropy, atrophy. You could call it life and death, the struggle. Different philosophical beliefs, the introduction of science. Man, even the fact that like just in the creative space, it helped you broaden your horizons and want to be creative and want to seek out, you know, some type of investigative resources. I mean, whether it be
Definitely.
mental space,
Definitely.
outer space, underwater, whatever. I mean, like I've read stuff where Jacques Cousteau was inspired by some of the things that he saw based upon, you know, Star Wars. I've read joints where, you know, astronauts were enthralled to such a degree that that's why
How
they wanted
about
to go
that?
into outer space.
Hmm.
So yeah, man, definitely. Props to George Lucas and this phenomenal just movement, man, that we know affectionately as Star Wars, yo.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. So next week, we're gonna continue with the war. We're gonna continue focus on the war. We're gonna do something that's a little bit more modern though. We're gonna be covering the movie Civil War, which is in movie theaters right now. So if you have not seen it, go out and see it so that you're prepared for our conversation on it because it's gonna be a good one. Once again, the Sticky Floors podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we are on YouTube. We just ask you to like, subscribe, and share, and also comment because your comments help us to do this better. Peace.
Peace.